Welcome back, everyone, to the Tanya webcast. We are going to begin this week, chapter 30. In the prior chapters, starting from 26, the Alter Rebbe, the author, discussed at great length how important it is for a Jew never to be depressed and always to be happy, because being happy is one of the most important aspects of serving God. And when one is not happy and one is melancholy and heavy and so on, there's no question that he has no chance in winning the battle against the evil nature within him. The Yetzer Hara, the evil nature, loves a depressed person because he gets him. It's the easiest target as a person who is melancholy. And the Alter Rebbe went on to explain how to make sure one is always happy, even if he has what would seem as legitimate reasons to be unhappy. For example, if someone has nebuch, we should never know of it, family tzaras. Someone dies in the family, or someone's parnasa is down the hill, and livelihood and things are not going well, that can bring down a person. So in that he discusses how to overcome that depression, he shouldn't allow that to depress him. He goes on to explain when a person has reasons to be depressed for spiritual reasons, and how to overcome that, and so on and so forth. In chapter 29, he says, what if your problem is that you have heaviness of heart? Sometimes you know it all, you know the information. It's not like you're ignorant. You know the greatness of Hashem, you know the greatness of Torah, you know the whole thing, but your heart does not respond. You have a heaviness in your heart. You're just like stone. You're not moved to fight the nature of the evil, the animalistic nature within you. You just don't have it. The strength in your heart, in your life, you don't have it to be able to overcome it. The Alter Rebbe says that then it's a problem with your body and the human soul, who are getting in the way. So in that case, you have to bring it down a little bit. He uses the words crush. Crush doesn't mean to inflict it with pain, because that's against the Torah and against Chassidus altogether. But he means to not give in to it, to speak down at it, to recognize the lowliness of the human nature and so on and so forth, which is so distant from God. And he gave examples for this, he explained it, and so on. In chapter 30 he's going to start on another point that he wants to make in the Avodah, in the divine worship of a Beinoni, of the regular average person. And that is humility. Let's take a look. Chapter 30, on page 133. This also a person must resolve in his heart to fulfill the instruction of our rabbis of blessed memory, and be humble of spirit before all men. This you must be in true sincerity, in the presence of any individual. This Mishnah statement in the Mishnah by the rabbis is not semantics. This is very precise. You know what it says in that instruction? And be humble of spirit before all men. Every man. No exceptions. This you must be in true sincerity. For real. To truly feel less than everyone else. Humbled by everyone else. Before everyone else. In the presence of any individual. Even in the presence of the most worthless of worthless men.
Why should you?
Because it says in the Mishnah you should.
I understand.
But why does the Mishnah tell us to do
Why
this?
does the Mishnah tell us to do this? Well, what is the purpose of being that humble?
What, you should be only a little humble?
No, but I mean...
Let's understand the value of humility.
Right.
Why should a person be humble altogether?
I mean, a person should be arrogant, but you don't have to be to the point of being that humble where you feel you have to be more humble than the person near you or next to you or the person you're with.
What does humility mean? This is an important point.
Right.
Let's spend time on this. What does humility mean?
It's a good question.
It means that...
Before we ask, why should you be humble?
You have to understand.
Let's ask, what is humility?
Right.
What is humility?
You're nothing.
Nothing compared to God. There isn't anything compared to
We didn't say compared to God. We said compared to
To
all
other men.
people. Every man.
Not to feel better than someone else?
Not to feel better than someone else, okay?
Again, what
What does better mean?
What is wrong with that?
One second, what does better mean?
What's wrong with that?
What does better mean?
yourself in a
Not being
higher
more
place.
entitled or superior.
That I can understand.
That means you should truly feel that everyone else is superior to you. That what humility is?
I don't.
So let's understand this. Moshe Rabbeinu has the same instruction.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
He has to be humble before all people. So he feels less than me and you. Does Moshe go around thinking that the people around this table are truly higher than him?
Yes.
He did. What does that mean? He thought that you spoke to God and he didn't?
No,
What did he think?
that he shouldn't make himself higher than anybody else.
But he is higher than you.
But he feels that
That's
he
what he
shouldn't make himself appear to be higher than him.
And,
That's
but
humility.
in his own estimation,
Right.
he
Yes,
should feel higher.
No,
So he's lying to himself. He's fooling himself.
no, he
That-
just feels...
Is he higher than you or not?
No.
From my perspective...
No, from the truth.
Yes.
Truly. Is he higher than you?
Absolutely. Yes.
Not from your perspective,
From
from the
his
objective truth. Is he higher than you or is he not higher than you?
Yes.
He's infinitely higher than you.
Absolutely.
So why should he fool himself thinking that he's not? Humility doesn't mean to be fooled. No, we're not talking about foolish humility over here. If you think that Moshe went around thinking that you're higher than him, that's not what he thought. That's not what he thought. Because that would make him an idiot. Not a humble person. That would make him a fool.
How do you
There's
say-
no mitzvah to be foolish.
What's the
Moshe knew very well that he spoke to God, and you can try from today till tomorrow to speak to God, you'll never accomplish it. He knew he was on a higher level than you.
No?
That was not his humility, running around thinking that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is higher than him.
But
He didn't think
But he
that.
didn't act that he was superior.
What does act mean?
Didn't show it.
He didn't...
He didn't put you down?
Right.
Correct.
That's a different instruction. That's not what this instruction is. This instruction means to truly feel lower than everyone else.
You know I can't.
Humbled by everyone. So how can that be? What kind of instruction is this? So we need to understand what humility is first. You want to say something, right? I thought you did. Okay, so let me tell you what humility is. Let me tell you what humility is. Humility doesn't mean that you're going to go around one day saying that this person is smarter than you. That is not humility. Because if he's not smarter than you, you're just lying, or either to him or to yourself. Either way, it's no good. That's not what humility is. Humility does not mean that you don't recognize your own greatness, your own qualities. Someone that doesn't recognize his own qualities is not on the right track. That is not a proper thing. There's a famous Hasidic instruction that just like you should know your deficiencies, you're obligated to know your qualities.
So what's humility?
Oh, that's a good question. So the world doesn't know what humility is. A lot of people have a misunderstanding what humility is. Humility means that I should walk around with my head down and say to you that you're better than me, even though I know that you're not.
No.
That's not humility, that's foolishness. Because if you think you're higher than him, and you're just saying to him that he's higher than you, you're a liar. You're not a humble person. Humility is not for someone else, it's for you. You should believe that you're less than everyone else. But should you not recognize your qualities? So how could they both be true? How could they both be true? Here's the answer. I was born into a very, very holy family, let's say. And my father and mother sent me to the holiest yeshivas in the world. And they gave me the best education in the world. And they brought me to the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, for 30 years. And I turned out to be a rabbi. So I'm going to go around saying, I'm better than you, because he didn't have the yeshiva education. He's not a rabbi either. That's arrogance. Why? But does it mean that I should think that he's smart, that he knows more Torah knowledge than me? No. That would be stupid. So what does humility mean? How could I feel less than him? Here's the way. Yes, you have to feel less than. That's what humility is. To see, to be humble. This you must be in true sincerity, in the presence of any individual, even in the presence of the most worthless of worthless. And this is why, because I have to always remember one thing. Any quality that I have
comes from Hashem.
Is not mine. Had he been brought up in the same environment, or him, or anyone, you guys were brought up in great environments, but let's say a person that does not have the qualities, had he been given my qualities, my opportunities, he'd do 10 times better than me. And to go a step further, and that which he does is much more meaningful to God than what I do. So who's better? It's better and worse is not measured by how many folios of the Talmud you know. That's not how you measure better. It doesn't go by that way. It goes a effort. Moshe Rabbeinu truly felt humbled in front of you. You know why? Not because he thought you spoke to God and you could speak to God. He thought like this: if Kenny Sher was able to talk to God and had my strength, he'd do so much a better job with the Jewish people. And he truly believed it. He really believed that. That he really believed. And that's why he went around thinking that I'm nobody. What I have is not mine. I'm going to take credit for what I have? That's not me. No, what effort did I make to have these qualities? He knew he was up on the mountain. He knew he was with God, one with God. He was half an angel. But he didn't believe it was his doing. And he knew that he truly believed that if anyone else stood with God at the burning bush and had been given that power, they would be greater than him. That he really believed that.
Remember, because
but he didn't think that you were higher than him in the present moment.
Even in the beginning.
In the sense of your holiness. He said if you had his neshama, you would be great. Much better than him.
In fact, it's part of his humility that he didn't want to accept it in the beginning.
That's also true, yeah. But even after he accepted, and even after he did the miracles, he split the sea, he went to Mount Sinai, brought the manna to the Jews, he was this unbelievable individual. He had this profound wisdom, he was the greatest of all prophets, Moshe Rabbeinu, who can compare? But it's not only we can't compare, we're not even within the realm of comparison. But he still thought less than you. He thought that you worked for what you have, you worked much more than what he worked for what he has. He really believed that. He was wrong, but he truly believed that.
It's not an easy concept.
And that's why you're able to have that sense of humility before all people, even in front of criminals. And he had what I have. He would have been much better than me. What am I doing with these gifts that I got from God? Nothing. Am I utilizing my gifts that I got from God? Those are not mine. Those are God's gifts to me. What am I doing with them? I'm doing a little. I could do much more. That's what he believed. And in that way, he really felt that you would be better than him if you had those qualities. And the little bit of quality that we all do have, he thought that we were doing much better effort with those. That's what humility is. Humility doesn't mean to go around saying, I'm an ignoramus, when you're not an ignoramus. That's silly. That's silliness. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go around saying, no, I'm not really a prophet. He didn't do that. That's not humility. That's stupid. This accords with the instruction of our sages, judge not thy fellow until thou art come to his place. You can't judge another person until you come to his place, which basically means you can never judge anyone, because you're never in someone else's place.
Right.
For it is his place that causes him to sin, because his livelihood requires him to go to the market for the whole day, and to be one of those who sit at the street corners, where his eyes behold all the temptation. The eye sees and the heart desires, and his evil nature is kindled like a baker's red-hot oven. That's good words there.
Yes.
And his nature is kindled when he sees what he shouldn't see. His nature gets kindled like a baker's red-hot oven, as is written in the Hosea. It burns as a flaming fire. What burns like a flaming fire? The Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh HaBahamis, the animal soul. So how could you really judge him? You say that person's so weak of the weak natured. He's so weak willpower. He can't overcome his evil temptation. What do you know about that person? You go sit in the street corner and see how you do. And now, what about if you do sit in the street corner and you did overcome it and someone else didn't? Do you think you're in his place? You're not in his place. What do you know? How do you know what kind of education he got? So many things are to be brought into the equation that you could truly never be in his place, and therefore you could never truly judge another person. Therefore, you could be humble before all people.
See, I could see having empathy for somebody like that and feeling sorry and trying to help him out, but it's hard for my mind to say I'm more humble than he is.
Why not?
I don't know, because
You're still
I
not.
can see him as my equal. I can see if I'm in this place, I'd be the same way.
Maybe it'd be worse.
Maybe I'd be worse.
Oh,
I'm not arguing, but
maybe he'd be. No, it's the other way around. Also, maybe if he'd be in your place, he'd be better.
That's the way of looking at it.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Could that be true?
Yeah. So you have to
Perhaps
think
it's even
different.
true.
You have to start.
Perhaps
thinking
it's even true. And who says it isn't true? I'll go a step further. Everyone has a Yetzer Hara, right? Everyone has to deal with temptation, with struggles. You ever overcome your struggles? Maybe that person's struggles are one type of struggle. Your struggles are different. Maybe he's overcoming his struggles a little more than you're overcoming yours.
Or to him, that's not even.
And
a
in that
problem.
way, he's making a greater effort when he does overcome.
Sorry.
So you really don't know if he's better than you or not.
No.
So what's
Nobody said he's better.
So maybe he is better. And if he is better, you should be humble before him.
But even if he's not, you still have to be humble before him.
But no, how could you be humble? If you don't believe he could be better than you, then how could you humble yourself before him? We're not lying to him. We're not talking about fooling anyone. This is sincere. You should truly feel that he's better than you.
But if he's not,
There's no such thing as not. He is.
It doesn't matter.
How do
He
you
is.
know?
That's
How
what
do you
I'm saying.
know?
You don't have to know.
I assume that I'm not. In other words, you have to say to yourself, how am I doing with my faculties and my gifts that I got from God? You think you're doing so good?
Okay.
He would do much better than you.
No,
And with the little bit that he has, he's doing a greater effort than you. How do you know? Assume it. That's the trick here.
Well, how do you
Assume such a
Put
thing.
yourself in his place.
Why not?
every person.
Why not? Yeah.
You can't put yourself.
Why should you not put this? Why shouldn't you feel that someone else is doing better than you?
But if
Why
you're in
shouldn't
front of a Ganath, and you're saying that you're supposed to regard him as better than you are?
Yeah, because if you would have the same temptations as him, maybe you'd steal every day. He's only stealing 6 days a
Maybe
week.
it'd be worse.
No, maybe. Is that possible? Is that in the realm of possibility?
Absolutely.
Which means, what?
Yes,
Which means
absolutely.
that one day a week he's overcoming his major struggles, right? Did you overcome your major struggles every day of the week? More than one day a week? Maybe not even one day a week.
Amazing way to look at it.
Maybe not even one day a week.
That's why I asked the question.
Yes.
It's just
Maybe
like
not
to
even
put
one day a
yourself
week.
in that
So who's better?
frame of mind.
So really, who's better? When God looks at effort, who's doing better? If you're looking, I understand you can't go around saying that you're a Ganav and he's not. That would be silly. He's the one that's a Ganav, you're not. But the question is, when you look at the bigger picture, why is he a Ganav? And maybe I'm also a little Ganav. What does a little Ganav mean? I'm not using the gifts that God gave me. Or I'm taking credit for what's not mine. So it's a Ganav. What? In other words, the temptation, that's the key here. Are you overcoming your temptations? You don't have a temptation to steal. You're not brought up in an environment of stealing, so that's not a challenge to you. No one of you is looking to rob a bank.
So that's not your
This
issue.
is not your issue. What is your issue? Coming late to daven. Oh, now let's measure that against his temptation. I'm not so sure you're doing better than him. You're a good guy.
But you're right. You have to think about these things.
Yes, you have to
Otherwise
think
it
about it.
doesn't-
But the Mishnah is not playing games. The
No.
Mishnah is giving us an instruction. The Alter Rebbe is saying, what is this instruction? I should feel less than every single human being in the world. How am I supposed to do that? Am I supposed to fool myself? No, it's true. Sincerity. How could it be sincere? Oh, he cut this is the way. This is how it can be real. And it says in the Torah that Moshe was an onav b'kol adam asher pnei adam. He was the most humble person more than anyone else. That means he felt more humble than anyone else. How did a guy like Moshe feel that way before everyone else? So what do you go around thinking that everyone else is a prophet and he's not? Everyone's holy and he's not? He didn't think that for a second. He knew he was holy and no one else is. But he didn't attribute that holiness to his effort.
That's the difference.
He said, what am I taking credit for something that God gave me? God didn't give it to him, so what's the big, what am I holding myself high? It's like someone would say, I gave $1 million to tzedakah this year, and he only gave $100. But he doesn't even have 100 to give, and he gave 100. You have 10 million, you only gave $1 million. So who's better?
You're right.
I'm asking, who's better?
The $100 guy's better.
So if you're measuring dollars, then you did better. If it's a matter of how much how many bills you gave. But who broke his evil nature? Who broke his nature more? Him with his 100 could be more than you with your 1 million. And Moshe really believed this. He really believed that everyone else was doing a better job at their effort. He said, of course I'm going to give $1 million. I have 10 million. God gave me a big neshama. I can do much better with a big neshama. But give him the 10 million. He would give 2 million away, not 1 million. That's what he believed. He says, I'm giving away 50% to charity, right? So out of 10 million, I'm giving 5 million. So he said, and how many did you give? I gave 1,000. Oh, I'm much better than you. He said, wait a minute, I'm not so much better. I wonder what he would do if he had 10 million. He'd probably give 7 million away, not only 5. And you really believe that. He really believed that.
So does it go back to the fact that you don't let your ego get in the way?
That's exactly right.
Of course.
There's no ego. He didn't have an ego. Because what's ego? What is an ego?
That's the
You're
opposite.
putting yourself higher than someone
Somebody
else.
Yeah, it's the opposite of the humility.
The opposite of humility. He didn't have an ego. He had a lot of money and a lot of holiness, but he didn't have an ego.
Those sapphire pieces.
Before it
I don't
is,
think
yeah.
there's anybody like that.
You don't believe there's anyone like?
Like
Moshe Rabbeinu
that?
was like that.
With a lot of money and no ego?
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Well, besides that.
Oh, yeah, there's been Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Says he was the richest man in his time.
The Rebbe?
Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, 2,000 years ago. The great author of the Mishnah.
Oh, right.
He had everything. He was at the same level as the Roman Empire, Roman Emperor.
And they were friends,
And
weren't
at the end of his life, he lifted up his hands to God and he said, you know, God, that I didn't enjoy even one little finger of this physical world.
they? Yeah.
And he meant it. He was real. He meant it pretty
That's humility.
seriously.
That's hard for me to
It's
say.
not only humility; it's a statement.
That's
That
hard
means
to
the money
say.
didn't do anything to him. It didn't affect him one way or the other. He didn't enjoy it. He took no pleasure in his money.
How did he make so much money?
I don't know.
Hashem.
It is different, however, with him. It goes but little to the marketplace. and he remains in his house for the greater part of the day. For even if he spends the whole day in the marketplace, but is possibly not so passionate by nature. For the evil inclination of all people is not the same. There's one whose nature is very, very powerful. There's one that not. So even if you're not sinning while you're in the marketplace, someone else is, you don't know what maybe your Yitzhak is not the same nature as his. He has a terrible passion for very, very many pleasures. You don't, you're more cold. You don't care about these things. So you can start taking credit for that. And start feeling better than him. Imagine you would have such a passion as him. Maybe you'd be 10 times worse than him. In truth, however, even he, whose nature is extremely passionate and whose livelihood obliges him to sit all day at their street corners, has no excuse. The Alter Rebbe is not excusing these people. They absolutely have no excuse whatsoever for his sins. And he is termed an utter evildoer. Rasha Gomer, because there is no dread of God before his eyes. So he's not giving these people a pass. For he should have controlled himself and restrained the impulse of his desire in his heart because of the fear of God, who sees all actions. As has been explained above, for the mind has the supremacy over the heart by nature. He could control his heart. He didn't. No excuse. But as far as you judging him, you have no right to judge him. Or at least to feel, better, bigger. By no means. It is indeed a great and fierce struggle to break one's passion. This isn't easy. Which burns like a fiery flame. Through fear of God, it is like an actual test. Like an actual test. Therefore, each person, according to his place and rank in the service of God, must weigh and examine his position as to whether he is serving God in a manner commensurate with the dimension of such a fierce battle and test. In the realm of do good, as for example, in the service of prayer with kavanah and devotion, pouring out the soul before God with its entire strength to the point of exhaustion of the soul, or waging war against his body and animal soul within him, which impede his devotion, a strenuous war to beat and grind them down like dust, each day before the morning prayers, before morning and evening prayers. Now, how are you doing with that? Think about it. How are you doing so well with all that? Also, during prayer, he needs to exert himself with exertion of the spirit and of the flesh, as will be explained later at length. So you have to know where you are in your service of Hashem. Just because you're doing so well doesn't mean you're serving God well. Doing mitzvahs and serving God are two different things. You know that. Did you know that?
Yes.
Just because you're doing mitzvahs doesn't mean you're serving God. That could be your nature. Serving God is a very different thing. Serving God means breaking your nature, going beyond your nature. Serve, that's a whole different thing. Anyone who has not reached this standard of waging such strenuous war against his body has not yet measured up to the quality and dimension of the war waged by one's evil nature, which burns like a fiery flame, that it to be humbled and broken by dread of God. It means you haven't started by fighting your evil nature. Could be you're doing mitzvahs all your life and you haven't even started fighting your evil nature. Because your evil may be very subtle. So you didn't break anything. And that's very true, B'chlal. People who can live their whole life doing mitzvahs, doing what they have to, and never serve God one day. What I mean by serve God, I don't mean, of course they did mitzvahs, but I'm talking about effort, breaking the nature, changing the nature, transforming oneself. You know what I'm saying? It's a very different thing. If your nature wants you to daven, your nature wants you to learn an hour a day, and your nature wants you to give charity 10%, you have not yet gone beyond your nature. That means you have not yet served God. Serving means going beyond. Putting yourself aside for God. If it's your nature, you haven't put yourself aside. You're self-serving. It's almost self-serving. So now you look at another person who's sinning all day, and you say to yourself, he's a nobody, I'm such a good guy. Not necessarily. It could be he broke his passion maybe one time today. When you're looking, he's not, but you don't know. Let me see how many times you broke your nature today. So it's a whole different way of measuring this. And that truly is the only way you can humble yourself before all people. There's no other way. So too in the matter of grace after meals. Till now I talked about davening. So too now he continues in the matter of grace after meals and all benedictions, all the blessings we make, whether those connected to the partaking of food or the performance of precepts. There's mitzvahs you say, there are brachas you say before you eat, and there are brachas you say before you do a mitzvah. So either way, for their own sake, where are we? I'm sorry, to be recited with kavanah, to say nothing of the kavanah of precepts for their own sake. You know what that means?
Feel it.
You do it because you want to do it.
For your Lord.
Why do you do a mitzvah?
For Hashem.
For the sake of the mitzvah. Not to serve any personal gratification or whatever it is. Even spiritual gratification. You do it for the mitzvah itself because God wants it. And it unites God with His world and so on. That's what a mitzvah for its own sake means. So let me see, are you doing that? You're looking down at other people. Are you doing the mitzvahs properly? Let's take a look at you. You take a look at you. And measure yourself up now with that other person. See, and I'm not so sure you're going to come out on top. Maybe yeah, maybe not. I don't know. But it's a great possibility that not, so that should humble you. So too in the matter of one's occupation in the study of the Torah. To learn much more than is innate or accustomed desire and inclination, by virtue of a strenuous struggle with his body. What's the strenuous struggle with the body that he's talking about here? Because the body is interested in other things, right? Mm-hmm. Let's even say that the body likes to learn. How long does it like to learn? Say 2 hours a day. Learn 3. That third hour, the body is already not interested. The body'd like to go learn, go lay down, watch a favorite show, go shopping, do other things. 2 hours it enjoys. 3 hours already, he's got ants in his pants, he's not interested. Oh, now starts the Aveda. Now starts your serving God. That third hour. The 2 hours is self-serving, the third hour is serving God. Because the 2 hours you don't have to do anything for it. That's your nature. The third hour you got to fight with your body. Tell the body, sit down and continue learning. Now how often do you do that? Now that guy in the street corner who's looking where he shouldn't, maybe this morning he said to his body, don't look, and he didn't look for one time. He fought his body more than you did, perhaps. You don't know. Everyone's fight is a different fight. So who says you're higher? Just because you're learning 2 hours a day and he's not? You really don't know. For to study a fraction more than is one's want, right?
Yeah, well.
Is but a small tussle which neither parallels nor bears comparison with the war of one's evil impulse. Burning like fire. Yeah, even if you say, yeah, I like to learn in 2 hours, and I learn 2.5 hours. So you can start taking credit. I'm fighting my body. Fighting your body to learn is not such a big fight as much as it's a fight when you're sitting in the middle of in the middle of Times Square, and the whole world is hustling and bustling around you, and it's very easy to get sucked in, and you got to fight your body and say, no, it's a whole different struggle. That's a bigger fight. So you say taking credit for fighting an easy fight. Go fight the real pros. Wrestle with the guys with the big muscles. Let me see how you do there. Maybe he tell you he's wrestled with a 5-year-old. He won. Big deal, That's not a big struggle. That's not a big win. But then take the guy that's struggling with a 300-pounder, and he gives him one good sets. Yeah, he lost the fight, but he zetsed him one good time. That's a big. He accomplished more than you did. Think about it. So that's how it should be seen. He is called utterly wicked Rosh Gomer if he does not conquer his impulse, so that it be subdued and crushed before God. So there's no way of you knowing what is a real struggle and what is not. So therefore you can never really truly feel like you're better than someone else. You can't. And that's the key here. For what difference is there between the category of turn away from evil and that of do good? Both are the commandments of the Holy King, who are the one and only blessed be He. So let's understand what he's saying over here. You're lacking in mustering up the strength to fight your body to daven properly. That person in the street corner is failing in the sins, in the sinful area. Right? I'm in the middle of a class. I'll call you back in a few minutes. You understand? Let's say this again. There are two realms. Do good and stay away from sin. Let's take an example of staying away from sin. Not to eat something that's not kosher. You keep kosher, let's say you do. So you're already a tzaddik. You're doing, you're doing good in that area, right? What's a positive mitzvah? To daven with kavan. So you're keeping kosher, but you're not davening with kavan. Right? Now you're looking at a person that went just now to McDonald's and bought a cheeseburger. You say, what a wicked person he is. This is terrible. And I turn around to you and say, wait a minute, you daven with kavan today? Well, I didn't eat pork. Davening kavan is just as great, just as important a mitzvah as not eating pork. So you didn't daven kavan and he ate pork. So you both did wrong. You're both in the bad, in the column of violators. You in the positive, him in the negative. You understand what he's saying here? It's both a struggle. It's both a struggle with your evil inclination, with your body and with your human soul. He's unable to overcome the struggle in the world of the negative, the sins. You can't overcome the struggle in the world of good. Who says one is more important than the other? They're both important. They're both God's mitzvahs. So I don't know if you really can feel yourself ever higher than anyone else. Who knows? Doesn't stop. So too with the other commandments, especially in matters involving money as a service of charity, tzedakah, and the like. There we really get into trouble when we think about how much charity we shouldn't be giving and we don't. Because charity is a very hard mitzvah, because you have to part with hard-earned money. It's not easy to part with your money. And it's a big battle against your body. Your body would like to have a fat bank account. And you have to chip away at it, and God wants you to give more. And you don't want to give more. So that's a battle. So maybe you're not violating on the street corner with all kinds of terrible sins. But let's take a look how you're fighting your body with the area of giving charity. Oh, you're not such a tzaddik. Both of your bodies are getting the better side of you. That's the bottom line. You in the positive, you in the negative, but it's all, the body is one. Right? And then the Alter Rebbe goes further. Even in the category of turn away from evil, every intelligent person can discover within himself that he does not turn aside from evil completely. And in every respect, where a hard battle at a level such as described above is called for. Let's be honest about it, right? How much are we really turning away from the evil that we should be turning away from? Or even on a lesser level than the aforementioned. For example, to stop in the middle of a pleasant gossip. Yeah? Or in the middle of a tale discrediting his fellow. Even though it be a very small slur, and even though it be true, even if it is true. And even when the purpose is to exonerate oneself, as is known from what Reb Shimon said to his father, our saintly teacher. I did not write it, but Judah the tailor wrote it. When his father replied, keep away from slander. He was trying to exonerate himself. There was an accusation there. Who wrote this? He said, it wasn't me, it was Judah the tailor. Oh, you're speaking Lashon Hara already. Even to exonerate yourself, you didn't let it. You could have just said, I didn't. You didn't have to say who did. The reason he said who did was to get it off his own back. So he put it to rest, right? So this a person that didn't go around speaking Lashon Hara. They came, accused him, so he said who did it. His father said, you're in the wrong already. Note there in the Gemara, beginning of chapter 10 of Baba Basra. The same applies to very many similar things which occur frequently, especially with regard to sanctifying oneself from permissible things. As an enactment based on the biblical text, you shall be holy and sanctify yourself. Therefore, because God is holy, he says we should be holy. No, how many can act holy, even in permissible things? To sanctify everything, not to eat more than you have to be holy in everything. Oh, now you're not such a big tzaddik anymore. Moreover, rabbinic enactments are even stricter than biblical enactments. And so forth. So how are you doing in the biblical mitzvahs? So start examining yourself with all these different categories of serving God. You'll find out that you're far from such a tzaddik. That you're far from a tzaddik. But all these and similar ones are of sins, which a person tramples underfoot. You don't realize you're sinning. You're trampling, it's trampled under, you don't even realize you're doing these things. And has come to regard as permissible in consequence of repeated transgression and so on. You don't even know there's something wrong with it. You do it so many times. In truth, however, if he is a scholar and upholds the law of God and wishes to be close to God, his sin is very great, and his guilt is increased manifold, that he does not wage war and does not overcome his impulse in a manner commensurate with the quality and nature of the intense battle mentioned above. Let me finish this chapter. So now the Alter Rebbe takes this a step further. Well, this will finish the chapter. Now let's talk to you as a scholar. You're a big scholar, right? So you should know better. And you don't do what you have to. So you're 10 times worse than that guy that doesn't know anything.
That's true.
You understand?
Yeah.
So your minor infraction can be worse than his major infraction. Because you should know better. You're a scholar. You know what it means to be a holy man. And you're messing up even on small things. That could be worse than the person who's messing about big things if he doesn't know. And sin is very great. Let's read from the triangle again. In truth, however, if he is a scholar and upholds the law of God and wishes to be close to God, his sin is very great and his guilt is increased manifold. In that he does not wage war and does not overcome his impulse in a manner commensurate with the quality and nature of the intense battle mentioned above. You're not doing your job. You're not doing what you should. Then the guilt of the most worthless of worthless men, of the corner squatters, who are removed from God and His Torah, whose guilt is not as heinous, is not restraining their impulse, which burns like a fiery flame by means of the dread of God. He's not restraining because he doesn't have the dread of God. Who knows and sees all their deeds as the guilt of the person who is ever so close to God, His Torah, and His service. Who knows? Maybe yours is worse than his. Theirs is not as bad as yours. As the rabbis of blessed memory said about Acher, for he knew my glory. Acher was banned from heaven, period. Because he knew my glory and he still did what he did. He was a tzaddik, he was one of the scholars of the Talmudic times, and he left everything. Therefore the rabbis declared in regard to the illiterate that deliberate infringements of the law are regarded in their case as inadvertent acts. Because they don't know better. So it's really inadvertent. But your sin, who knows better, is not inadvertent. So who's better and who's worse? It depends how you measure it. And Al Rebbe over here says to the Jew, don't measure it the way you're used to measuring things, in quantity. Maybe you should start measuring it in quality. And you'll find out that Takahi may be a little bit better than you. In truth. Not just in, in being nice and being... Maybe he really is better than you. So that's a powerful concept.